Hey guys, now this is the finished family wedding portrait that I started a while ago and I did a little video on. Now in the previous video I said how I was speaking about my problems with this, how I was struggling with it, and how I was going to come back and tell you how I sorted them and got it right in the end, and indeed that is what I'm doing now. So what were the initial problems? Well, the idea of the portrait is that they wanted these two people together, my aunt and my cousin, and because at the wedding there was no photographs of them taken together, and I had to obviously, you know, join the gap. And so I've got all these photos of each of them separately, and I had to splice them together, make a composite, and then paint it. Now the problem was, of my aunt here, there was not many good photos, or rather usable photos for this, I should say, because they're, you know, they're blurry, or they're not quite at the right angle for a portrait, because a photo is very different to a portrait. Got to be two separate things. So in the end I kind of did a bit of a composite. I kind of took pieces from other photos, spliced them together, and then stitched them like this. Now the problem was, because the photos weren't great, I was struggling to get a likeness. My cousin here was no problem at all, painted that in her face in about a day, but my aunt took nearly 2 weeks to try and get it right, all because all the photos were blurry and the likeness just wasn't there. So how did I tackle this and get it right? Well, what I did was I took my initial photograph and I put it in Photoshop, okay, on like a bottom layer, and then I took a photograph of my painting and I put that on the top layer, laid it over the top of it, exactly the same size, you know, just lined it up on top of the initial photograph, and then I just simply switched off the painting layer off and on to flick between the two, and then you can see the parts that are moving and obviously the parts that are breaking the likeness, okay, so you can see what's in the wrong place and how to fix it. And that's how I did that. I did it about 3 times in the end, and a little bit back and forth, a little bit back and forth each time, and in the end it came out right. So that was a very good tip, and it's one that I'm going to remember throughout my career as a painter, because it took me about 5 minutes to sort it out, and it could have been weeks of struggling otherwise. Okay, so what else is going on in the painting? Well, because it was a composite photograph, there was no real background behind them. Now I was at the actual wedding reception, and I knew how the room was, but I kind of took a few liberties with this. I used this kind of greenish colour on the wall behind, so it would bring out the pinks, you know, the complementary colours in the faces, and it would make them stand forward a little bit more. And also you can see around their outlines, you know, the shoulders and the head, the tones in the background are, you know, it's dark to light and light to dark. There's no real places where you completely lose that outline. Okay, on the right hand side, the back of the head of my cousin here, it's kind of a similar tone, it's all quite dark, but that is to bring you back into the painting instead of looking out of it. Okay, so what I did, I sort of did this window against the dark hair, and then a curtain against like light hair, and the same with the wall. You can see how the wall shades, and it just makes everything just stand forward a little bit more. And these are the things you have to think about before you start a painting, working out composition. That's how that's what takes the time, because you don't just simply sit down and paint the people and then shove something behind them. You have to think about it as a painting and where your eye is going to go and where you want the eye to go, and then you have to construct everything around it, how the colours are, the tones and things like that, and what works well next to each other. Okay, and that's basically all I did. Lots of fiddly brushwork and things, and lots of tweaking on this one. It was probably the most difficult painting I've ever done because of the initial problems, but it turned out well in the end, and I'm pretty happy with it. Yeah, so that is that. I've got to paint some dogs next, so stay tuned for that. See you later. Thanks.